Imagine this. A teenager rolls up to court in a car worth more than most people's homes. And from the very first second, he mocks everyone around him. The heavy wooden doors creaked open, and the sound of polished shoes echoed against the tiled floor. A boy of 17 entered as if he owned the room. The fitted designer suit looked like it had never seen a wrinkle, and the glow of his phone lit his face. He didn't bother lifting his eyes toward the bench. To him, the courtroom was background noise, a stage he hadn't asked for, but would gladly hijack. People in the gallery turned their heads, whispering. The car he had parked outside, a gleaming sports machine with a license plate that drew stares, had already sparked murmurs before the hearing began. Now, the driver himself made it clear the arrogance didn't stop with the vehicle. Judge Caprio's tone was polite, almost fatherly. "Do you understand why you're here today?" The boy chuckled, his thumb still scrolling. "Your Honor, I didn't even pay for this car. My dad takes care of everything." You won't believe the courtroom's reaction. The room shifted instantly. A woman in the back leaned toward her neighbor, muttering in disbelief. Two men in worn jackets shook their heads in unison. You could feel the weight of judgment settling in, not from the court, but from the people who had come expecting routine cases about expired meters or broken tail lights. The judge straightened his glasses. His voice hardened. "This is not a stage for entertainment, young man. This is about responsibility." "Responsibility?" The boy finally looked up, eyes bright with mischief. "I've had dozens of tickets already." "So what?" "We just pay them." The casual admission sucked the air from the room. One older woman pressed her palm to her chest as though she'd been struck. The boy leaned back in his chair, lifted his phone, and turned the screen so everyone nearby could see. On it was a photograph of a crowded party. Lights blazed, drinks in hand, and right in the center, he posed with two fingers raised in triumph. His caption was clear. "Beat the cops again." The judge's face didn't flinch, but his voice cut like a blade. "Do you realize your parents are paying for your recklessness, not only in dollars, but in reputation?" The boy smirked. "They don't care." A murmur of outrage rolled through the gallery, louder this time. Elderly women whispered furiously. Men folded their arms, the atmosphere pressing tight around the boy who still sat casually slouched. The judge leaned forward. "This court deals with more than parking tickets. It deals with people's lives, and right now yours is sliding toward a wall you don't even see." But the boy only grinned wider, basking in the attention. To him, the rising tension wasn't a warning. It was fuel. The moment hung heavy, an ordinary citation transforming into a public reckoning. The contrast was stark, a trivial fine on paper, yet in reality a mirror of entitlement so brazen it made the room boil. And that was only the beginning. The judge folded his hands and let the silence linger until even the boy shifted in his chair. Then, with a calm edge, he asked, "Tell me about yourself. What kind of life do you live when you're not collecting tickets?" The teenager smirked as though the question were beneath him. "My dad builds towers downtown. My mom runs investments. We travel. We buy things. That's my life." "So, you've never worked a day? Never earned your own dollar?" The boy tilted his head, eyes flashing with amusement. "Work? Why would I? We're not poor." The line sparked nervous laughter from a few in the gallery, but most sat stone-faced. A man near the back muttered under his breath, shaking his head at the arrogance on display. The judge's voice was even but sharp. "Privilege without effort is a dangerous lesson." The boy leaned forward, eager now to flaunt. "Dangerous? I've outrun squad cars before, made a bet with my friends who could rack up the most fines. I'm winning." Whispers burst across the room. Mothers in the audience looked at one another with disbelief. A retired officer in the second row shifted uncomfortably, jaw tightening. From the defense table, his mother suddenly stood. She was dressed immaculately, her jewelry catching the courtroom lights. "Your Honor," she began smoothly. "This is being blown out of proportion. He's only a teenager. These are childish stunts. Nothing more." Judge Caprio turned his gaze on her, his expression turning colder. Madam, reckless driving is not a prank. Your son risks lives every time he takes the wheel. And the way you dismiss it tells me where he learned his disregard. Her lips tightened, but she sat down, eyes darting away. The boy, emboldened by the exchange, laughed. See, even she knows it's nothing serious. The judge fixed him with a stare. Do you understand that your so-called games place others in danger? Do you understand that behind every statistic of reckless driving, there are names, faces, families torn apart? The boy shrugged, shoulders loose. Other people aren't my problem. A wave of disapproval surged through the gallery. A woman in her 70s whispered to the man beside her, "That could have been my grandson on the road." He nodded grimly. The judge didn't move, but his voice dropped an octave. You are not only breaking traffic laws, you are eroding the very trust your community should have in the next generation. The boy's smirk faltered just a fraction, but he quickly masked it with another laugh. Trust? I don't need anyone's trust. My dad can fix anything. The gallery reacted again, louder this time. Some shook their heads, others exchanged knowing looks as if the pattern was too familiar. Money cushioning consequence. But the atmosphere had shifted. What began as a boy bragging about tickets was morphing into a broader portrait, an upbringing soaked in indulgence, a family willing to excuse, and a teenager who viewed the world not as a place of shared rules, but as a playground where nothing stuck. The judge allowed the discontent in the room to settle before speaking again. Your story is not one of youthful mistakes, but of cultivated entitlement. You've turned your violations into trophies, your recklessness into a contest, and that will end here. The boy smirked once more, but a shadow passed across his expression, brief and uncertain. The crowd leaned forward. Something heavier was taking shape. This was no longer about traffic citations. It was about a system tested, a community provoked, and the fragile line between privilege and accountability. And that line was about to snap. The judge tapped a finger on the stack of files at his side. Let's stop circling. Bring me the record of every violation from the last 6 months. The clerk slid a folder forward, pages thick with citations. Caprio spread them across the bench. Numbers leapt from the paper. Fines, dates, codes, officer notes, his brow furrowed. Over $15,000 in penalties, all in half a year. The boy lounged as if bored. So what? I like driving fast. If you've got money, why should it matter? Gasps rolled through the room. A man in the gallery muttered, Tell that to the people you put at risk. His neighbor hushed him, but the anger was palpable. The judge held up one sheet. This isn't just about speed. Here, Route 95, midnight. A collision. Someone was injured. You were cited at the scene. The boy tilted his head, feigning thought. Honestly, I don't even remember that night. A ripple of outrage traveled the benches. The judge's eyes narrowed. You don't remember an accident that put someone in the hospital? Before the boy could answer, a uniformed officer stepped forward. Your Honor, I was there. He laughed when we pulled him over, told us, my lawyer will crush you in court. We filed it exactly as it happened. The gallery erupted in whispers. Elderly women shook their heads. A retired man in the front row whispered, He's mocking the system itself. But the sharpest revelation came as the judge scanned the registration forms. His voice slowed, deliberate. This car, the one outside today, the one in half these reports, it isn't registered to you. It isn't in your father's name, or your mother's. He lifted the page higher. It's registered to your grandmother. The boy stiffened, the first break in his swagger. She signed the papers. It's no big deal. Murmurs surged louder than before. A woman in the gallery clutched her scarf, whispering, she probably had no idea. The judge's tone cut through the noise. Are you telling this court that your grandmother knowingly assumed responsibility for a sports car valued higher than her home? That she understood she was listed as owner of a vehicle used in repeated criminal violations? The boy looked down at his phone, avoiding the eyes fixed on him. She doesn't care about that stuff. The weight of the words landed hard. The gallery split between disbelief and fury. half stunned that a teenager could hide behind an elderly relative, half seething at the thought of exploiting her. The judge leaned forward, voice steady but dangerous in its calm. Young man, this isn't a problem of money. It's a problem of character. You treat danger as a game, your family as a shield, and the law as a joke. That ends here. For the first time, the boy didn't laugh. He cleared his throat, a nervous sound cutting through the silence. The room stilled, every eye fixed on him. What began as a routine hearing had transformed into something else entirely. Not a tally of fines, but an unfolding drama of arrogance, recklessness, and hidden family secrets. And the next step would drag that secret into the open. Judge Caprio's hand paused midair, the registration form still between his fingers. He looked over the rim of his glasses. If this vehicle is in your grandmother's name, then she deserves a voice. Bailiff, bring her in. The doors opened slowly. An elderly woman stepped forward with the aid of a cane, her frame slight, shoulders drawn as if bracing against the storm. Her shoes tapped quietly across the floor, each step amplified by the stillness in the room. She lowered herself into the witness chair with effort. Her eyes, pale and tired, drifted toward the boy. For a moment, her mouth trembled as if words were too heavy to carry. The judge leaned gently. Madam, did you know you are listed as owner of this car? Her head moved side to side. I had no idea, Your Honor. He handed me papers and said they were for taxes. I trusted him. He's my grandson. A low groan passed through the gallery. Men shifted uncomfortably. Women shook their heads. The boy shot up, face flushed. She doesn't remember. She's old. She gets confused. She'll sign anything. The room erupted in sharp whispers. The grandmother turned to him, voice breaking. You told me it was just a form. You said you needed help? Her cane rattled against the floor as she steadied herself. I even gave him money from my pension when he said the government was after us. Month after month, I thought I was protecting the family. The judge's jaw tightened. Are you telling this court that a luxury vehicle was financed under your grandmother's name with her retirement funds paying the bills? She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I didn't know it was for a car. I never even saw it until today. The boy snapped, his bravado faltering into open hostility. She's exaggerating. You people are acting like this is a crime. It's not that serious. Caprio's palm slammed the bench. Not that serious? You manipulated an elderly woman into debt. You concealed the purchase of a high-end car and used her as a shield for your recklessness. That is not immaturity. That is fraud. Gasps filled the room. The boy's mother buried her face in her hands. A man in the gallery muttered, It's beyond arrogance now. It's cruelty. The grandmother sobbed quietly. I trusted him because he's my blood. I thought family meant safety. Her words cut deeper than any legal argument. The gallery was transfixed, not by the boy's entitlement, but by the visible wound of betrayal etched across the face of a woman who had raised him. The judge's voice hardened. Young man, your behavior is no longer a question of poor judgment. It is the deliberate exploitation of kinship. This court does not turn a blind eye when trust is weaponized against the vulnerable. The boy, cornered yet defiant, crossed his arms. My dad will handle it. You can't touch me. The judge leaned forward, voice firm as stone. This proceeding is not about your father's influence. It is about you. And from this moment forward, you will be treated not as a careless teenager, but as a participant in deception that harmed your own grandmother. The gavel struck once. This hearing will recess. When we resume, we will examine the financial trail that ties this vehicle to her name. If there is evidence of intentional misrepresentation, it will be pursued as criminal fraud. The gallery buzzed with disbelief, outrage, and pity all at once. Some clapped softly for the grandmother's courage. Others shook their heads at the boy's venomous words. As she was helped from the stand, her whisper carried through the silence. I never thought he could do this to me. And for the first time, the boy's smirk collapsed. When the court reconvened, the tension felt heavier, as though every person in the gallery carried a piece of the grandmother's grief. Judge Caprio's voice was clipped, all courtesy stripped away. We will now examine the financial records tied to this case. Clerk, bring forward the bank statements. The attorney for the boy rose at once, polished words ready. Your Honor, this is an unnecessary invasion of privacy. The judge cut him off, eyes blazing. Privacy is not a shield for exploitation. Sit down. The pages were handed across. Numbers leapt from the columns. Deposits small and steady. Withdrawals large and irregular. Caprio flipped through, his expression darkening. Pension checks deposited immediately, followed by transfers to rental agencies, liquor suppliers, and gambling websites, all under her account. The grandmother sat hunched, wringing a handkerchief. I didn't know where the money went. He said it was for bills I couldn't understand. The judge pressed on. And here, payments to luxury apartment complexes. Did you live in these residences? Her eyes filled with bewilderment. No, sir. I've lived in the same house for 40 years. The courtroom erupted. Someone in the gallery exclaimed, he bled her dry for parties. The bailiff barked for order, but the outrage could not be smothered. Caprio lifted another sheet. One more violation appears in these files. A ticket for street racing at 2 a.m. The evidence includes a recording. The screen flickered to life. A shaky video pulled from social media filled the courtroom. The boy behind the wheel, laughing into the camera, shouting over the roar of the engine, I do whatever I want. Money makes it disappear. The sound of his own voice, amplified in this solemn chamber, rattled the illusion of control he clung to. Then a new voice spoke up. From the second row, a neighbor of the grandmother raised her hand. Your Honor, I need to testify. I've seen collection agents come to her door. They shouted, threatened. She was terrified. The old woman covered her face, trembling. I didn't want to shame the family. I kept quiet. Caprio's gaze sharpened. Shame lies not with you, but with the one who put you in this position. He turned toward the boy. Your grandmother endured harassment because you turned her savings into your bankroll. Even the defense attorney looked pale, papers trembling in his grip. The judge reached the insurance forms next. He studied them, then said flatly, these documents claim the driver of the vehicle is a middle-aged man with decades of experience, a fabrication. Whoever filled this out committed forgery. The gallery broke into gasps. A woman cried out, that's a felony, another muttered. And he sits there smiling. Caprio's hand clenched the file. His voice rose. You robbed an elderly woman, not only of money, but of peace. You stripped her of dignity, so you could play games with horsepower and adrenaline. The grandmother's quiet sobs filled the room. I stayed silent because I thought family mattered more than anything. But silence gave him power. I see that now. Something shifted in the gallery. Applause broke out. Short, fierce claps from strangers who admired her courage to speak aloud. At last, the boy looked cornered, his arrogance cracking as eyes bore into him from every side. For the first time, his phone lay untouched on the table. Caprio leaned forward, voice like steel. We are no longer discussing tickets or youthful recklessness. We are dissecting a pattern of deceit documented in black and white, and I will not allow you to walk out of here untouched. The room was electric, every spectator locked in the same thought. This was no longer about a spoiled teenager's antics. It was the unveiling of betrayal and the slow march toward reckoning. The courtroom was silent when Judge Caprio returned. His robe seemed heavier, his expression carved from stone. He settled behind the bench and spoke slowly, every syllable carrying weight. This is no longer a traffic case. What unfolded here reveals deliberate fraud, exploitation of an elder, and a callous disregard for human life. I will render my decision now. The boy slouched, arms folded, but his eyes darted nervously. His mother stared at the floor, unable to look at anyone. The grandmother sat upright despite her frailty, her hands folded tightly in her lap, as though bracing for whatever storm remained. Caprio raised the stack of documents. The fines and citations pale compared to what has been uncovered. You forged signatures, concealed ownership, drained accounts, and left your grandmother exposed to harassment and humiliation. That is not mischief. It is calculated abuse. A murmur ran through the gallery. People leaned forward, hungry for the outcome. The judge continued, effective immediately. The vehicle registered under your grandmother's name will be seized. All financial contracts tied to her will be voided pending investigation. This court will refer the matter to the district attorney for charges of fraud and elder exploitation. The boy snapped upright, his voice cracking. You can't do that. My father will crush this. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp as thunder. Enough. In this courtroom, money does not eclipse justice. Sit down. The boy froze, face paling. Caprio turned to the grandmother, his tones softening. Madam, the law failed you when it allowed this burden to reach your doorstep. Today, that changes. Your accounts will be safeguarded, your debts investigated, and your role in these violations erased. Tears spilled down her cheeks. For the first time, her voice steadied. Thank you, Your Honor. I only wanted the truth to be seen. The gallery erupted in applause, not polite, but raw and fervent. Strangers who had watched in outrage now stood in respect, clapping for the frail woman who had carried silence until it nearly destroyed her. The boy, cornered at last, sank back into his chair. His smirk was gone, replaced by the vacant stare of someone who had never imagined consequence reaching this far. The judge delivered the final words with solemnity. This hearing began with what seemed a minor offense. It ends with a reminder that justice is not measured in dollars or excuses. It is measured in accountability, and accountability has found you today. The gavel came down one final time. The grandmother was helped to her feet. She paused, leaning on her cane, and looked at her grandson, not with hatred, but with a sorrow so profound it silenced even the whispers. I raised you to know better. You chose this path. Now you must walk it alone. Her words lingered as she left the chamber, a fragile figure whose dignity, though wounded, remained unbroken. The crowd parted for her, some reaching out to squeeze her hand, others bowing their heads in respect. Behind her, the boy sat trapped, the weight of his choices settling like chains he could no longer shake. The courtroom emptied slowly, but the story had already spread. In every hushed conversation, in every glance exchanged, one truth was clear. This was not about fines or speed, not about privilege or bravado. It was about the line between family and betrayal and the courage of an old woman who finally spoke the truth. And though the boy's future would now be decided in higher courts, one verdict was already etched into the memory of everyone present. Arrogance had met its limit, and justice had stood its ground. You don't have insurance? Then leave, shouted the receptionist. That's when the billionaire standing in line behind them stepped forward. This boy will be treated now, or this hospital won't exist tomorrow. What would you do if your child's life hung in the balance, and money stood in the way? Stay tuned to find out how one act of courage sparked a revolution in healthcare. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is now. Subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Please, my brother needs help right now, Maya Johnson shouted, her arms trembling under the weight of her 4-year-old brother. The boy's small body burned with fever against her chest, his eyes barely open. He can't breathe right. The busy emergency room at Mercy General Hospital continued its normal buzz of activity. Nurses rushed past. Doctors called out orders. But at the front desk, Rebecca Mills barely looked up from her computer screen. Insurance card or payment up front, Rebecca said, her perfectly manicured nails continuing to type. That's hospital policy. Maya shifted Tobias in her arms. His dark curls were damp with sweat, his brown skin flushed with fever. 3 days of 103.5 degrees temperature had left him weak and struggling to breathe. We don't have insurance right now, Maya explained, her voice cracking. My mom lost it when her hours got cut at work, but she's coming as soon as she can. Please, my brother is really sick. Rebecca sighed loudly. No insurance means no service. The free clinic opens tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. You'll need to come back then. Across the waiting room, Richard Sterling stood with the hospital's CEO, Dr. James Wilson. Sterling's expensive gray suit and commanding presence made him stand out among the hospital staff. At 55, his dark hair showed distinguished streaks of silver that matched his steel blue eyes. As you can see, Mr. Sterling, Dr. Wilson was saying, the new pediatric wing would expand our capacity by 30%. Your $10 million donation would transform children's care in Chicago. Sterling nodded, but his attention had shifted to the front desk. He watched the young black girl pleading for help while the receptionist remained unmoved. My brother's been sick for 3 days, Maya continued, tears streaming down her face. Our mom is working. She couldn't leave or she might lose her job. I took the bus to get him here. That's not my problem, Rebecca replied, reaching under her desk. If you continue causing a disturbance, I'll have to call security. Tobias let out a weak cough, whimpering in pain. It hurts, Maya, he whispered. Sterling's jaw tightened. The scene triggered a flash of memory. His wife at that same desk 2 years ago, crying as their daughter Emma struggled to breathe. The same dismissive treatment, the same cold stare from Rebecca Mills. Excuse me, Dr. Wilson, Sterling said abruptly, walking away from the surprised CEO. He crossed the waiting room in 10 long strides. When he reached the front desk, he stood beside Maya, his tall frame casting a shadow over Rebecca's computer. This child will receive treatment immediately, Sterling announced, his authoritative voice silencing the entire waiting room. Or this hospital won't exist tomorrow. Rebecca looked up, recognition flashing across her face. Mr. Sterling, we're simply following hospital protocols for uninsured patients. Protocols that allow a child to suffer? Sterling's voice was calm, but ice cold. Not acceptable. He pulled out his phone. One call to the board of directors. One press conference about how Mercy General lets children die in their waiting room, and you'll all be looking for new employment. Dr. Wilson hurried over, his face flushed. Mr. Sterling, there seems to be a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Sterling cut him off. This boy needs medical attention now. Make it happen. Within minutes, a team of doctors and nurses surrounded Tobias. They placed him on a gurney, checking his temperature and attaching an oxygen monitor to his tiny finger. 104 degrees, a nurse called out. Oxygen levels dropping. Dr. Lisa Chin, a young emergency physician, listened to Tobias's chest with her stethoscope. Significant congestion in both lungs. Let's get a chest X-ray and start him on oxygen. I want blood work immediately. As they wheeled Tobias toward the examination rooms, Maya tried to follow. A nurse stopped her. You'll need to wait out here, sweetie. We'll take good care of your brother. Maya stood frozen, suddenly alone in the middle of the emergency room. Her shoulders slumped with exhaustion and relief. For 3 days she had been the only one caring for Tobias while their mother, Letitia, worked cleaning jobs across Chicago. Sterling watched the girl's face, her strength finally cracking now that her brother was receiving help. She couldn't be older than 14, but she carried herself with the responsibility of someone much older. They'll help him now, Sterling said, approaching her carefully. Your brother will be okay. Maya looked up at him, wiping tears from her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Would you like something to drink? There's a cafeteria downstairs, Sterling offered. Maya shook her head. I can't leave. My brother might need me. Sterling nodded, understanding her loyalty. Then let's sit. It might be a while. They moved to the waiting area where Maya perched on the edge of a plastic chair, her eyes fixed on the doors where Tobias had disappeared. How old is your brother? Sterling asked. 4, Maya answered. He turned 4 last month. And you? How old are you? 14. She hesitated, then added, I know most people think I'm too young to bring him here alone, but my mom works 3 cleaning jobs. She couldn't leave work, or they'd fire her. We need the money, especially since she lost her full-time position and the health insurance that came with it. Sterling's expression softened. You did the right thing bringing him here. Maya studied his face carefully, then her eyes widened with sudden recognition. I know who you are, she said quietly. You're Richard Sterling. Your picture was in the Chicago Tribune last year. You donated money to build that big technology center downtown. Sterling nodded, surprised by her recognition. That's right. Maya's intelligent eyes never left his face. But that's not why you helped us, is it? She paused, her voice dropping lower. You're the man whose daughter died here 2 years ago. Emma, she was 12. They said it was just the flu, but she died anyway. The color drained from Sterling's face. How do you know that? I remember faces, Maya said simply. I never forget them. I saw you on the news when you held a press conference about her, and I remember seeing that same lady at the desk. She nodded toward Rebecca the day your wife was crying here. Sterling stared at the young girl, speechless. For 2 years, he had carefully planned his revenge against Mercy General Hospital, the place that had dismissed his daughter's symptoms until it was too late. His donation offer was just the first step in his plan to buy the hospital and shut it down completely. But this girl had seen through him instantly. You have quite a memory, Sterling said finally. Eidetic, Maya replied. That's what my teachers call it. I remember everything I see. Every face, every detail. She looked toward the emergency room doors. Is that why you helped Tobias? Because of what happened to your daughter? Before Sterling could answer, Dr. Chen emerged from the examination area. Her face was serious as she approached them. Are you Tobias's sister? She asked Maya. Maya stood quickly. Yes, is he okay? He has severe pneumonia in both lungs. It's a good thing you brought him in when you did. A few more hours. Dr. Chen didn't finish the sentence. We've started him on antibiotics and oxygen. We need to admit him to monitor his breathing overnight. My mom will be here soon, Maya said. Can I see him? Dr. Chen nodded. For a few minutes. He's asking for you. As Maya followed the doctor, she turned back to Sterling. Thank you again, she said. Then, with wisdom beyond her years, she added, I hope whatever you came here to do, you'll think about all the other kids like Tobias who need this hospital. Sterling watched her disappear through the doors, her words echoing in his mind. His carefully constructed plan for revenge suddenly seemed less clear. In the hospital boardroom upstairs, the CEO was frantically calling board members. Sterling knows about the Emma incident, he whispered urgently. We need to contain this immediately. We need to make this situation go away immediately, Dr. Wilson whispered into his phone, unaware that Sterling remained near enough to hear. The CEO's face had turned pale when Maya mentioned Emma's name. Sterling watched the hospital administrator retreat to his office. He needed time to think, but found himself drawn toward the examination area where Maya and Tobias had gone. Something about the girl's perception unsettled him. He had spent 2 years carefully hiding his true intentions behind smiles and donation proposals. Yet Maya had seen through everything in moments. Dr. Chen emerged from the swinging doors. She looked surprised to see Sterling waiting. Mr. Sterling, are you here for the Johnson family? She asked. Yes, he answered without hesitation. How is the boy doing? We're getting his fever under control, but the pneumonia is severe. Another few hours without treatment. She shook her head. He'll need to stay in the hospital for at least 3 days, and insurance. Dr. Chen's expression tightened. That's not my department. I treat patients regardless of their coverage. But others don't, Sterling said. It wasn't a question. The doctor looked around to ensure no one could hear them. I've worked here 6 months. I've seen patterns, but I need this job, Mr. Sterling. Maya appeared behind Dr. Chen. Tobias is sleeping now, she said. They gave him medicine to make his fever go down. That's good, Sterling replied. He hesitated, then asked, Maya, can we talk? They sat in a quiet corner of the waiting room. Sterling studied the young girl's face. Her eyes held a wisdom that didn't match her 14 years. How do you know about Emma? He asked directly. Like I said, I remember faces. 2 years ago, My mom was cleaning in this hospital. I was waiting for her to finish her shift when they brought your daughter in. Maya looked down at her hands. I saw you and your wife begging for them to help her. Rebecca was at the desk that day, too. Sterling's breath caught. You saw all that? I did. I remember Rebecca telling you to wait, even though Emma was having trouble breathing, just like she did with Tobias today. Maya looked up at him. I'm sorry about your daughter. The simple words broke through Sterling's carefully constructed wall. For 2 years he had channeled his grief into revenge plans. Now, this child had brought the raw pain back to the surface. Thank you, he said softly. Emma was 12. She loved science and wanted to become a doctor someday. Maya nodded. I bet she was nice. She was the kindest person I've ever known. Sterling pulled out his phone, showing Maya a photo of a smiling girl with his blue eyes and long brown hair. She looks happy, Maya said. She was, until she got sick. Sterling put his phone away. The hospital said it was just a common flu. They made us wait for hours while her condition got worse. By the time they finally admitted her, it was too late. Maya was quiet for a moment. They do that a lot here. What do you mean? She looked around cautiously, then pulled out her own phone. I started recording things after I saw what happened with your daughter. People get turned away all the time if they don't have insurance, especially if they look like me. Maya pressed play on a video. Sterling watched as Rebecca Mills told a Hispanic mother that her child with a badly cut arm needed to go to the free clinic. Another recording showed an elderly black man with chest pain being told to wait, while white patients who arrived later were seen immediately. I have 27 recordings, Maya said. I keep them organized by date. I wanted to have proof that this happens. Nobody believes kids like me otherwise. Sterling stared at her in astonishment. Maya, what you've been doing is important. These recordings could. Mr. Sterling, Dr. Wilson's voice interrupted them. The CEO approached with a forced smile. I apologize for our misunderstanding earlier. I'd like to assure you that Mercy General takes all cases seriously. That's not what the evidence suggests, Sterling replied coldly. Dr. Wilson's smile faltered. Evidence? Before Sterling could respond, the hospital doors burst open. A woman in a cleaner's uniform rushed in, her face tight with worry. Maya! She called out. Mom! Maya stood up and ran to her mother. Letitia Johnson embraced her daughter tightly. Where's Tobias? Is he okay? I came as soon as I could. He's sleeping, Mom. They're helping him. He has pneumonia, but Dr. Chen says he'll be okay now. Letitia's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank God. I was so scared when I got your message. Sterling watched their reunion. The exhaustion on Letitia's face told a story of long hours and constant struggle. Yet, her first concern was for her children, not herself. Dr. Wilson stepped forward. Mrs. Johnson, I'm Dr. Wilson, the hospital administrator. I want to assure you that your son is receiving our best care. And please don't worry about the cost. Given the circumstances, we'll be waiving all fees. Letitia looked confused. Waiving the fees? I don't understand. It means we won't be charging you, Dr. Wilson explained with another forced smile. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Sterling, perhaps we could continue our discussion about your donation in my office. Sterling shook his head. Not now, Dr. Wilson. I'd like to make sure this family is settled first. The administrator's face tightened, but he nodded. Of course, we can talk tomorrow. And Mrs. Johnson, please let us know if you need anything at all. As Dr. Wilson walked away, Letitia turned to Sterling. Who are you, and why is the hospital suddenly waiving fees? Mom, this is Mr. Sterling, Maya explained. He made them help Tobias when they were going to send us away. Sterling extended his hand. Richard Sterling. Your daughter is quite remarkable, Mrs. Johnson. Please call me Letitia. She shook his hand, her eyes wary. And yes, Maya has always been my little adult. But why would you help us? People like you don't usually notice people like us. People like me. Rich people, Letitia said bluntly. I clean houses in your neighborhood. The owners barely see me when I'm right in front of them. Sterling respected her directness. I noticed because your daughter reminded me of my own. I lost her in this hospital 2 years ago. Letitia's expression softened. I'm sorry for your loss, and grateful for your help. Dr. Chen approached them. Mrs. Johnson, Tobias is awake and asking for you. You can see him now. As Letitia and Maya followed the doctor, Sterling's phone rang. His lawyer. Richard, what's happening? I just got a call from Mercy General's legal team. They're saying you threatened the hospital. They refused to treat a sick child without insurance, Sterling explained. I simply corrected their priorities. This could complicate our plans. We were supposed to be building goodwill before the purchase offer. Sterling watched Maya through the window of Tobias's room. She was holding her brother's hand, speaking softly to him. Plans change, Sterling said. I need you to look into federal laws about emergency room treatment. Specifically, when hospitals can refuse patients based on insurance status. EMTLA, his lawyer answered immediately. The Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. Hospitals are required to provide emergency care regardless of insurance status or ability to pay. And if they don't, major violations, federal penalties, potential criminal charges in extreme cases. Sterling felt a cold resolve forming. That's what I thought. I'll call you back. He ended the call as a hospital administrator approached him with paperwork. Mr. Sterling, we've prepared the documents to waive the Johnson family's medical bills. And Dr. Wilson would like to meet with you tomorrow to discuss your concerns about our admissions process. Sterling took the papers. Tell Dr. Wilson I'll be bringing my legal team to that meeting. The administrator's smile faded. Is that necessary? We're trying to be accommodating. Only after being threatened, Sterling replied. I wonder how accommodating you would have been if I hadn't been here today. Maya emerged from Tobias's room. She approached Sterling with a determined expression. They're only being nice because they're afraid of you, she said quietly. Last month, my friend's grandmother died in their waiting room. Nobody waived those fees. Sterling nodded. I believe you. They don't just do this to us, Maya whispered, looking around to make sure no one could hear. I think they did the same thing to your Emma. Sterling stood frozen as Maya's words sank in. The possibility that Emma's death wasn't just a tragic mistake, but part of a pattern, hit him like a physical blow. What makes you think that? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya glanced toward Tobias's room where her mother sat beside the sleeping boy. Because I've been watching them for 2 years. They treat some people differently. Rich people, people with good insurance, they go straight to a doctor. Others wait until it's too late. Sometimes they never get help at all. A nurse approached them. Mr. Sterling, Dr. Wilson asked me to inform you that he's prepared a conference room upstairs, if you'd like to continue your discussion in private. Thank you, but I'll be staying here, Sterling replied firmly. The nurse hesitated. He also said to tell you that the board is very interested in your donation and willing to discuss naming the new pediatric wing after anyone you choose. Sterling's expression hardened. Tell Dr. Wilson, I'll contact him when I'm ready to talk. After the nurse left, Sterling turned back to Maya. I need to see all your recordings. I have them on my phone. Maya pulled it out, but then froze. Someone's coming. Rebecca Mills walked purposefully toward them, accompanied by a security guard. Her fake smile didn't reach her eyes. Excuse me, she said to Maya. I need to speak with you about recording on hospital property without consent. What are you talking about? Maya asked, trying to hide her phone. A patient reported seeing you record video at the front desk earlier. That's a violation of our privacy policy. Rebecca held out her hand. I'll need to confiscate your phone. Sterling stepped between them. That won't be happening. The security guard moved forward. Sir, hospital policy clearly states. I don't care about your policy, Sterling interrupted. This girl's phone is her private property. If you want it, get a court order. Rebecca's smile vanished. This isn't your concern, Mr. Sterling. Actually, it is, Because I suspect you're not worried about patient privacy at all. You're worried about what's on that phone. Rebecca's face flushed. That's ridiculous. Sterling pulled out his own phone and dialed. My lawyers will be here in 20 minutes. We can discuss this matter with them present. Rebecca and the guard exchanged glances. This isn't over, she said, walking away. Maya looked up at Sterling with wide eyes. They know I've been recording them. Yes, they do. And that means you have something they fear. Sterling checked his watch. I meant what I said about my lawyers. But first, I need to move Tobias somewhere safe. What do you mean? Maya asked. I don't trust this hospital to care for him properly. Not when they know he's connected to this situation. Dr. Chen approached them, her expression concerned. Mr. Sterling, can I speak with you privately? They moved to a quiet corner of the hallway. Dr. Chen spoke in a low voice. I overheard what happened. Rebecca has already filed a formal complaint about Maya's recordings, claiming they violate HIPAA laws. Do they? Sterling asked. Technically, recording in public areas of a hospital isn't automatically a HIPAA violation, especially if patient information isn't captured. But that's not the real issue. She glanced around nervously. I need to tell you something, but not here. There are cameras everywhere. Sterling studied her face. You know more about what's happening here. Dr. Chen nodded. I was hired 6 months ago. It didn't take long to notice patterns in who gets immediate treatment and who waits. When I raised concerns, my supervisor told me to focus on medicine, not management. She handed Sterling a business card. My shift ends at 10 o'clock tonight. Call me. After Dr. Chen left, Sterling returned to Maya. I'm going to arrange for Tobias to be transferred to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. They have an excellent pediatric unit. Can they do that? Just move him? Maya asked. With your mother's permission, yes, and I'll cover all costs. Maya looked suspicious. Why would you do that? Because your brother deserves proper care without fear of retaliation, and because you might be right about what happened to Emma. An hour later, Sterling sat with Letitia in Tobias's room, explaining the transfer. The boy was sleeping peacefully, his breathing easier with the help of oxygen and antibiotics. I don't understand why we need to move him, Letitia said. He seems to be doing better. Mrs. Johnson, I believe your son will receive better care at Northwestern, and I'm concerned about how the staff here might treat your family after what happened today. Maya, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. Mom, they tried to take my phone. They know I've been recording them turning people away. Letitia's eyes widened. You've been doing what, Maya? That could get us in serious trouble. That's exactly what I'm worried about, Sterling said gently. Your children have become targets in a situation that goes beyond one day's events. Please let me help. Letitia looked from Sterling to her sleeping son. I can't afford another hospital. I don't even know how I'm going to pay for today. You won't pay anything. I'll cover all costs. Sterling held up a hand when Letitia began to protest. Please, this is something I need to do for Emma. The transfer was arranged quickly. By 7 o'clock that evening, Tobias was settled in a private room at Northwestern with a team of pediatric specialists overseeing his care. Sterling provided Letitia with a hotel room next to the hospital so she could stay close to her son. What about you? Sterling asked Maya, who had refused to leave her brother's side. You should get some rest too. I'll be fine, she insisted. I want to stay with Tobias. Sterling noticed the exhaustion in her young face. You've been taking care of him for days. Now it's time to let others help while you rest. Maya reluctantly agreed to sleep in the hotel room with her mother, but only after extracting a promise that they would call immediately if Tobias woke up. After ensuring the Johnson family was settled, Sterling met Dr. Chen at a small coffee shop 3 blocks from Mercy General. Thank you for meeting me, she said, looking nervously over her shoulder. I'm risking my job by talking to you. I understand, Sterling replied. And I appreciate your courage. Dr. Chen pulled out a USB drive. This contains anonymized patient data from the past 6 months. Average wait time sorted by insurance status and race. The disparities are significant and consistent. Sterling took the drive. This could be explained away as coincidence. Maybe, but this can't. She slid a folder across the table. These are internal emails discussing patient prioritization strategies that directly violate federal law. They're careful with their language, but the meaning is clear. Patients without insurance or with Medicaid are to be discouraged from receiving treatment. How did you get these? I have access to departmental emails. I started saving them when I noticed what was happening. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Mr. Sterling, what happened to your daughter was wrong, but she's not the only one. Last month, a 7-year-old boy died of untreated asthma after being made to wait 4 hours. Sterling's hand tightened around the folder. Who else knows about this? A few nurses have raised concerns. They were either silenced or transferred to other departments. She hesitated. There are people inside who want things to change but are afraid to speak up. After their meeting, Sterling drove to Maya's neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. He had asked Letitia for her address, claiming he needed to pick up fresh clothes for the family. In reality, he wanted to see how they lived. The apartment building was old but clean. Sterling climbed 3 flights of stairs. The elevator was broken and found apartment 307. Using the key Letitia had lent him, he unlocked the door. The apartment was small but meticulously organized. School books were neatly stacked on a table. The kitchen was spotless. Photos of Maya and Tobias covered the refrigerator. Despite the worn furniture and patched walls, the home radiated care and pride. Sterling found Maya's room easily. Unlike most teenage spaces, it was perfectly neat. Textbooks lined a small shelf. A notebook on her desk caught his attention. It contained detailed accounts of patients turned away from Mercy General with dates, times, and descriptions. The girl had been documenting hospital violations for months. As Sterling gathered clothes for the family, his phone rang. It was his head of security. Sir, someone is monitoring your movements. A black sedan has been following you since you left the hospital. Hospital security? More professional than that. Likely a private firm. Sterling wasn't surprised. Increase our team. I want the Johnson family protected around the clock. When he returned to the hotel, he found Maya sitting alone in the lobby. She should have been sleeping, but instead she was writing in a notebook. I thought you were resting, Sterling said, sitting beside her. I couldn't sleep. She looked up at him. I've been thinking about why you're doing all this. It can't just be because of what happened today. Sterling was silent for a moment. You're right. I came to Mercy General with a plan. I was going to donate $10 million, join their board, and then buy enough control to shut them down completely. Because of Emma? Yes, I wanted revenge. He looked at Maya's notebook. But now I see that wouldn't help children like Tobias. It would just remove one hospital from a neighborhood that needs more health care, not less. Maya studied his face. So, what will you do instead? Sterling felt a clarity he hadn't experienced in the 2 years since Emma's death. I'm going to fix Mercy General from the inside out. Change the system that failed Emma and nearly failed Tobias. He pointed to her notebook. And your evidence is going to help me do it. Maya closed her notebook. They'll fight back. They already tried to take my phone. Yes, they will, Sterling agreed. The hospital board, Rebecca, Dr. Wilson, they all have too much to lose. That's why I've arranged for your family's protection. Protection from a hospital? Maya looked skeptical. From people who might break laws to protect themselves. Sterling handed her a small business card. If anyone approaches you about this matter, call this number immediately. My security team will respond. Maya took the card, her expression solemn. You know what I want to be when I grow up? A doctor. So I can fix the system from the inside, too? Sterling smiled, seeing Emma and Maya's determination. That's exactly what this broken system needs. The next morning, Sterling watched Maya talk to her brother. Her face animated as she described Northwestern Memorial Hospital's big aquarium in the lobby. Tobias looked much better. His fever had dropped, and the oxygen mask had been replaced with a small tube under his nose. And after you get better, Mr. Sterling says we can go see the real big aquarium at the shed, Maya told Tobias. The boy smiled weakly. Will they have sharks? They have everything, Maya assured him. Sterling stepped into the room. How's our patient today? Doctor says his breathing is better, Letitia replied. She looked exhausted but relieved. They want to keep him for 2 more days to finish the antibiotics. That's good news. Sterling handed Letitia a paper bag. I brought breakfast for everyone. You didn't have to do that, she protested. I wanted to. Sterling pulled a chair beside Maya. I need to talk to you both about what happens next. Maya's face grew serious. About the hospital. Mercy General. Yes. My team is looking into everything, but we need to be careful. People with something to hide can become dangerous. Letitia looked alarmed. Dangerous? It's a hospital, not a gang. Mom, they tried to take my phone, Maya reminded her. They knew what I was recording. Sterling nodded. And now they know I'm investigating them. That puts all of you at risk. What kind of risk? Letitia asked. Before Sterling could answer, his phone rang. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped into the hallway. Sterling. Sir, it's Jones from security. There's been activity you should know about. A man visited the Johnson apartment building this morning asking questions about the family. He claimed to be from Child Protective Services. Sterling's grip tightened on his phone. Was he actually from CPS? We're verifying, but it seems suspicious. Also, someone accessed Mrs. Johnson's employment records at all 3 of her workplaces. Keep the team on high alert. No one approaches the family without going through me first. Sterling returned to the room, his expression controlled. Letitia, has anyone from Child Protective Services ever contacted you before? She looked surprised. No, never. Why would they? Someone claiming to be from CPS was at your apartment building this morning asking questions. What? Letitia stood up alarmed. Why would they? It's starting, Maya said quietly. They're trying to scare us. Sterling nodded. I believe so. The hospital has connections throughout Chicago. They're using them to pressure us. But CPS, Letitia's voice shook. They could take my children. They won't, Sterling assured her. My legal team will handle any false claims. But for now, I think you should all stay at the hotel until Tobias is discharged. Later that morning, while Letitia remained with Tobias, Sterling took Maya to his downtown office. The glass and steel building rose 60 floors above Michigan Avenue with Sterling Technologies displayed prominently at the top. Wow, Maya whispered as they rode the elevator to the top floor. You own this whole building? Just the company that occupies it, Sterling replied. My technology firm employs about 2,000 people here. In Sterling's spacious office, his legal team waited. 3 lawyers sat around a conference table covered with documents. This is Maya Johnson, Sterling introduced her. She's our key witness. The lead attorney, Sarah Parker, smiled at Maya. Hello, Maya. Mr. Sterling tells us you have recordings of hospital staff turning away patients without insurance. Maya nodded, suddenly nervous. Yes, ma'am. 27 recordings over the past year. May I see your phone? Maya handed it over. Sarah connected it to a laptop and began copying files. We'll need to enhance the audio on some of these, she said. But even from my initial review, there appear to be clear violations of EMTALA laws. Sterling turned to Maya. EMTALA is the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. It requires hospitals to treat anyone who comes to the emergency room regardless of their ability to pay. That's what I thought, Maya said. But they do it anyway. They find ways to make people leave without actually saying, "We won't treat you." Sarah nodded. That's exactly what we're seeing in your recordings. They use delay tactics, paperwork, and intimidation to discourage people without insurance. Sterling's assistant interrupted with a phone message. Sir, Dr. Chin is downstairs. She says it's urgent. Minutes later, Dr. Chen entered the office looking nervous. "They know I helped you," she said without preamble. "My hospital access was restricted this morning. I can only enter the emergency department, nowhere else." "How did they find out?" Sterling asked. "Security cameras, probably. They're reviewing all footage of us talking." Dr. Chen placed a flash drive on the table. "I brought something else. Emma's original medical records before they were altered." Sterling stared at the flash drive. "How did you get these?" "I have a friend in records." She remembered Emma's case and noticed the file had been accessed multiple times after her death, which is unusual. She made a copy of the original file before it was changed. Sarah took the flash drive. This could be crucial evidence of a cover-up. Dr. Chen looked at Maya. "There's something else. The hospital is preparing to offer your family a settlement. A large one." "What kind of settlement?" Maya asked. "Money for your brother's care, a college scholarship for you, and help with your mother's employment. But it comes with strict confidentiality requirements. You would have to surrender your phone and sign papers promising never to speak about what you've seen." Maya's eyes widened. "They want to buy our silence." "Yes," Dr. Chen confirmed. "And they'll present it as generosity, the hospital caring for a family in need." That afternoon, Sterling's security team reported more troubling news. Maya's school principal had called Letitia about Maya's excessive absences. 2 of Letitia's employers had suddenly reorganized schedules, cutting her hours significantly. "They're attacking on every front," Sterling told his legal team. "Financial pressure, threats to custody, employment problems. They want to isolate the Johnson family and force them to accept a settlement." Sarah looked concerned. "The hospital has powerful connections. This goes beyond Rebecca Mills or even Dr. Wilson." Sterling's phone rang. It was his company's CFO. "Richard, you need to see this. Our stock dropped 15% today after rumors hit the financial blogs about your mental stability." "What rumors?" "They're saying you've been erratic since Emma's death, making paranoid accusations against respected institutions. They're quoting sources close to you, saying you need psychiatric help." After hanging up, Sterling explained the new development to his team. "They're coming after my reputation now." Maya looked guilty. "This is all happening because you helped us." "No," Sterling said firmly. "It's happening because Mercy General has been breaking the law for years, and we're exposing them." That evening, Letitia called Sterling in tears. A woman from Child Protective Services had visited Tobias's hospital room. She asked why Tobias wasn't treated sooner. Letitia sobbed. "She suggested I neglected his care." "Mr. Sterling, they're going to take my children." "Stay calm," Sterling instructed. "My lawyer is on her way to you. Don't sign anything or answer any more questions until she arrives." After assuring Letitia, Sterling turned to Maya, who had overheard the conversation. "Do you still want to fight them?" he asked gently. "Your family is suffering because of this." Maya was quiet for a moment. "If we stop, what happens to the next kid like Tobias or the next Emma?" She looked up at Sterling with determination. "We can't stop." "Then we need to move faster." Sterling turned to his team. "I want everything we have ready for legal filing by tomorrow. Prepare for immediate action." As they worked late into the night, Sterling received a call from Northwestern Memorial. The CPS worker had returned with police officers demanding to interview Tobias alone. "My lawyer blocked it," Letitia reported, "but they said they'll be back with a court order." "They're escalating." Sterling told his team, "We need to go public before they can do more damage." At midnight, Sterling sat alone in his office, examining the files Dr. Chen had provided. Emma's original medical records showed clearly that she had displayed severe symptoms upon arrival. High fever, difficulty breathing, disorientation. Yet the altered records claimed she had only mild symptoms consistent with seasonal flu. The proof of tampering was undeniable. For 2 years, Sterling had believed Emma's death was due to a misdiagnosis. Now he knew it was deliberate negligence followed by a cover-up. As he studied the records, his security chief burst into the office. "Sir, there's been an incident at the Johnson apartment." Our team reports someone broke in 15 minutes ago. The place has been ransacked, and there's no sign of Mrs. Johnson or the children. Sterling stood up, his face pale. They were supposed to be at the hotel. Letitia told our team she needed to pick up some medications for Tobias. They escorted her to the apartment, but were called away by what now appears to be a false alarm in another part of the building. When they returned, the door was open, and the family was gone. Sterling grabbed his phone. Find them now. Get the car ready, Sterling ordered as he grabbed his coat. And call Sarah. We need legal help immediately. The drive to Maya's apartment felt endless. Sterling's mind raced with terrible possibilities. When they finally arrived, police cars surrounded the building, their blue and red lights flashing in the night. An officer stopped Sterling at the perimeter. Sir, you can't enter. This is an active scene. Sterling's security chief stepped forward. This is Richard Sterling. He's connected to the family. The Johnsons. The officer's expression changed. You should speak with Lieutenant Davis. He's inside. In the apartment, Sterling found not a criminal scene, but something equally disturbing. 3 Child Protective Services workers and several police officers. Lieutenant Davis approached him. Mr. Sterling, I understand you know the Johnson family. Where are they? Sterling demanded. The children have been temporarily removed from their mother's custody due to concerns about neglect and endangerment. That's absurd, Sterling said. There's no neglect here. Where's Letitia Johnson? She became agitated when informed of the emergency removal order. She's being evaluated at Chicago Memorial Hospital. Sterling pulled out his phone. This is completely illegal. My attorney is on her way. A woman in a gray suit stepped forward. Mr. Sterling, I'm Andrea Brooks from CPS. This removal is based on credible reports of medical neglect. Tobias Johnson was critically ill for days before receiving treatment. And there are concerns about Maya's extended absences from school. This isn't about neglect, Sterling said coldly. This is retaliation orchestrated by Mercy General Hospital because the Johnsons exposed their illegal practices. Andrea looked uncomfortable. I don't know what you're talking about. We received multiple reports about this family. From whom? Sterling interrupted. Rebecca Mills. Dr. Wilson. The timing is awfully convenient. Before she could answer, Sarah Parker arrived. Legal documents in hand. I'm representing the Johnson family. I need to see the emergency removal order immediately. While Sarah reviewed the paperwork, Sterling stepped aside with his security chief. Find out where they've taken Maya and Tobias, and get me everything on Andrea Brooks, who she knows at Mercy General. Any connections to the board? Already working on it, his security chief replied. We've also located Mrs. Johnson. She's not at Chicago Memorial as they claimed. She's at Mercy General. What? Why would they take her there? Unknown, but Dr. Wilson is personally overseeing her case. Sterling felt cold anger rising. They're consolidating their control over the whole family. Sarah approached with grave news. The removal order is technically legal, but it's based on questionable reports. They've separated the children. Tobias has been returned to Mercy General's pediatric ward since he's still receiving treatment. Maya is in emergency foster care. Can we get them released? Not tonight. We need a judge to review the case, which won't happen until morning at the earliest. Sterling made a decision. Get me a court order to visit both children, and prepare emergency motions to have them released to my custody temporarily. Your custody? Sarah looked surprised. On what grounds? Family friend, concerned citizen, whatever works. Just get me access to them. The next 6 hours were a blur of legal maneuvers. By dawn, Sterling had secured permission to visit Maya at the foster care facility on the city's west side. He found her sitting alone in a small room, her face tight with fear and anger. Maya, he said gently, are you okay? She looked up, relief washing over her face. Mr. Sterling, they won't tell me anything about Mom or Tobias. They took my phone and wouldn't let me call anyone. I know. I'm working to fix this. He sat beside her. Tobias is back at Mercy General. Your mom is there, too, though they're telling different stories about why. Maya's eyes flashed. This is because of the recordings, isn't it? They're trying to shut us up. Yes. And they're using every connection they have. Sterling leaned closer. But we're fighting back. My lawyer is filing emergency motions to have you both released to my custody temporarily. They won't let that happen, Maya said. The lady from CPS told me this was for my own good. That my mom wasn't taking proper care of us. They're lying. This is about silencing you, nothing more. Maya looked down at her hands. What if they hurt Tobias or my mom just to make us stop? Sterling felt a wave of guilt. His quest for justice had put this family in danger. I won't let that happen. I promise you. By 10 o'clock that morning, Sterling's legal team had secured a court hearing for 2 o'clock that afternoon. Meanwhile, his investigators discovered troubling connections. Andrea Brooks from CPS had a brother who served on Mercy General's advisory board. The police lieutenant who authorized the emergency removal played golf regularly with Dr. Wilson. The corruption goes deeper than we thought, Sterling told Sarah. They have people everywhere. That works both ways, Sarah replied. We've found 3 former nurses willing to testify about Mercy General's patient screening practices, and Dr. Chin has provided emails discussing insurance verification protocols that clearly violate federal law. Sterling visited Letitia next. He found her sedated in a private room at Mercy General. A security guard posted outside. Mrs. Johnson, Sterling touched her arm gently. It's Richard Sterling. Letitia's eyes fluttered open. My children, she whispered. They took my babies. I know. We're going to get them back. Can you tell me what happened? She struggled to focus. People came to the apartment, said Tobias was neglected. When I argued, they said I was agitated and needed evaluation. Her voice broke. They're making me look crazy. They've drugged you to keep you compliant, Sterling said angrily. I'm getting you transferred to Northwestern immediately. As he left Letitia's room, Sterling encountered Dr. Wilson in the hallway. Mr. Sterling, the hospital CO said smoothly, I was just coming to check on Mrs. Johnson. Such an unfortunate situation with her children. A situation your hospital engineered, Sterling replied. This ends now, Wilson. Release the Johnson family, or what happens next will destroy this hospital and everyone involved in this scheme. Dr. Wilson's smile remained fixed. I have no idea what you're talking about. CPS made their determination independently, and Mrs. Johnson became quite hysterical. She needed medical intervention. You've crossed every legal and ethical line. For what? To hide your violations? To protect your reputation? You should consider your own reputation, Mr. Sterling. Dr. Wilson's voice hardened. Grief can distort perception. Many people are concerned about your mental state since Emma's death. The mention of Emma's name from Wilson's mouth pushed Sterling to the edge of his control. You don't say her name ever. We provided excellent care to your daughter, Wilson continued. The records clearly show. The records were altered, Sterling interrupted. We have the originals. For the first time, Wilson's confidence faltered. That's absurd. We also have Maya's recordings and testimony from current and former staff about your illegal patient screening practices. It's over, Wilson. The CEO recovered quickly. Even if that were true, which it isn't, you're now entangled in a complex CPS case. The Johnson children are in state custody. Any claims they make will be viewed as desperate attempts to reunite with a mother who endangered them. Sterling realized Wilson was right. The hospital had carefully constructed a trap that discredited both Maya and Letitia. Their testimonies would now be suspect. Sterling spent the next hour with Tobias, who had been returned to Mercy General's pediatric ward. The boy was confused and frightened. Where's Maya? He asked repeatedly. Where's my mom? They're both okay, Sterling assured him. And you'll see them soon. He noticed the boy's treatment had changed. Fewer medications, monitors disconnected. They were preparing to declare him recovered, which would mean transfer to a foster home. At the court hearing that afternoon, Sterling's legal team presented evidence of the suspicious connections between CPS, the police, and Mercy General. The judge, an older woman with skeptical eyes, listened carefully. "While I find these connections concerning," she said finally, "I cannot ignore the documented fact that Tobias Johnson was seriously ill for several days before receiving medical care, and Maya's school reports significant absences." "Your Honor," Sarah argued, "Mrs. Johnson works 3 jobs to support her family. Maya helps care for her brother when their mother is working. These aren't signs of neglect. They're signs of a family doing their best in difficult circumstances." The judge considered this. "I'm not ready to return the children to Mrs. Johnson while these allegations are being investigated. However, I am concerned about potential conflicts of interest with their current placements." After further deliberation, the judge made her ruling. Maya and Tobias would be temporarily released into Sterling's custody with supervised visits for Letitia. CPS would continue their investigation with oversight from a court-appointed guardian. It wasn't a complete victory, but it got the children away from Mercy General's influence. That evening, Sterling brought Maya and Tobias to his downtown penthouse. The children stared in awe at the vast space with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago. "Is this your house?" Tobias asked, his eyes wide. "One of them," Sterling replied. "You'll be safe here." While Tobias explored with Sterling's housekeeper, Maya stood by the windows, looking out at the city lights. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "They'll keep coming after us." "I know," Sterling agreed. "That's why we need to end this quickly." Maya turned to face him. "Why are they fighting so hard?" "It's just the hospital." Sterling sat down, gesturing for Maya to join him. "It's not just about the hospital. It's about money and power. Hospitals make more money from patients with good insurance. By turning away people like your brother, they improve their profits." "That's horrible," Maya whispered. "Yes, it is. And I've been thinking about this all wrong." Sterling's expression grew somber. "When Emma died, I wanted revenge. I planned to buy Mercy General just to shut it down. Shut it down. But then where would people go when they're sick?" "Exactly. I was so focused on punishing them that I didn't consider the consequences." He looked at Maya with newfound respect. "You helped me see that destroying the hospital wouldn't fix the real problem." Maya considered this. "The real problem is the people running it, not the building itself." "Yes. And not just at Mercy General. This happens at hospitals all over the country." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Maya spoke softly. "I want to be a doctor someday. A good one who helps everyone no matter how much money they have." Sterling smiled. "You will be, and I'll help make that happen." Later that night, Dr. Chen arrived at the penthouse with more documents. "They've started erasing evidence," she reported. "Deleting emails, altering more records." "They know we're building a case," Sterling said. Dr. Chen looked worried. "There's more. I received notice today that my medical license is under review for professional misconduct. The complaint is anonymous, but the timing is obvious." "They're trying to discredit you too," Sterling said. "We're running out of time," Dr. Chen warned. "If they succeed in destroying evidence and silencing witnesses, our case falls apart." Sterling looked from Dr. Chen to Maya, who had insisted on joining their conversation. "Then we need to act now. Not with legal filings that can be delayed for months, but with something they can't ignore or control." "What are you thinking?" Dr. Chen asked. "I'm thinking," Sterling said, his expression resolute, "that it's time to set a trap. One that forces them to reveal their true nature where everyone can see it." "A trap?" Maya leaned forward. "What kind of trap?" Sterling paced across his penthouse living room. "We need the hospital to repeat their pattern of patient discrimination, but this time with witnesses who can't be silenced or discredited." Dr. Chen looked concerned. "You want to send in another patient? They might turn away. That could put someone at risk." "Not just anyone," Sterling said. "I've been thinking about my nephew Jake. He's 14 like Maya. If he arrives with symptoms similar to what Tobias had." "You'd use your own nephew?" Dr. Chen asked, shocked. Jake wouldn't actually be sick, Sterling explained. He'd pretend. We'd have him arrive with a minority caretaker who appears unable to pay. The hospital wouldn't recognize him as my relative. Maya shook her head. It won't work. They're on high alert now. They'll be extra careful with every patient who comes in. Sterling considered this. You may be right. There's another problem, Dr. Chen added. Even if they do turn Jake away, they'll claim it was an isolated incident, or a misunderstanding. We need to show the pattern of discrimination. For the next hour, they discussed alternatives, eventually outlining a new approach. Instead of creating a new incident, they would compile their existing evidence into an undeniable case and force a public confrontation. Dr. Wilson has invited me to a board meeting tomorrow. Sterling said they want to discuss my donation again, hoping to smooth things over. It's a perfect opportunity, Dr. Chen said, but they'll be prepared for you to raise concerns. Yes, which is why we need to surprise them. Sterling turned to Maya. Would you be willing to come with me to that meeting? Maya's eyes widened. Me at a board meeting? You're our most powerful witness. Your recordings, your memory, your experience with Tobias. They can't dismiss all of that. They'll try, Maya said. They'll say I'm just a kid. That's exactly why your testimony is so powerful, Sterling replied. You saw through their system when most adults couldn't or wouldn't. The next morning, Sterling's security team reported that hospital administrators were meeting urgently with board members. They had clearly learned Sterling would be attending the afternoon board meeting and were preparing their response. They think they can contain this, Sterling told his team. They believe this is still about my donation and Emma's case. They don't realize what we're really bringing to the meeting. Sarah Parker, his lawyer, looked concerned. Richard, are you sure about including Maya? She's been through so much already. It's her choice, Sterling said firmly. And she wants to do this. Maya had spent the morning working with Sterling's tech team, organizing her recordings and preparing her statement. Tobias remained at Sterling's penthouse, watched over by security and Sterling's housekeeper, who had won the boys' trust with homemade cookies and stories. At 2 o'clock, Sterling's car pulled up to Mercy General Hospital. Photographers from local news outlets waited outside. Sterling had anonymously tipped them about a major announcement regarding hospital administration. Are you ready? Sterling asked Maya as they prepared to exit the car. She wore a simple blue dress, her box braids neatly arranged. Despite her youth, her expression showed remarkable determination. I'm ready, she said. For Tobias, for Emma, for everyone they've turned away. Dr. Chen met them in the lobby. The board is already assembled in the conference room on the top floor. They've increased security throughout the building. As they rode the elevator, Sterling received a text message from his security chief. Wilson called emergency board session an hour before your scheduled meeting. They've been discussing containment strategies. The elevator doors opened to reveal a security guard who escorted them to the boardroom. Inside, 12 people sat around a long table with Dr. Wilson at the head. Their conversation stopped abruptly when Sterling entered with Maya and Dr. Chen. Mr. Sterling, Dr. Wilson said, his smile not reaching his eyes. We weren't expecting additional guests. I hope that's not a problem, Sterling replied calmly. Maya Johnson has important insights to share about patient care at Mercy General, and Dr. Chen has been invaluable in helping me understand hospital protocols. Board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. A woman in an expensive suit spoke first. Mr. Sterling, we understand you have concerns about your daughter's treatment. We're prepared to discuss those privately, but this is a formal board meeting to discuss your potential donation. My concerns go far beyond Emma's case, Sterling said. He placed his laptop on the table and connected it to the room's projection system. And I believe everyone here should hear what we've discovered. Dr. Wilson stood up. This isn't the appropriate forum for whatever accusations you're planning to make. Actually, it's exactly the right forum, Sterling replied. You're the leaders of this institution. You should be the first to know how it's failing its mission. Before anyone could object further, Sterling started his presentation. The screen showed statistics comparing treatment times based on insurance status and race. These numbers come from your own records, Sterling explained. Patients with private insurance wait an average of 27 minutes for emergency treatment. Those with Medicaid wait 112 minutes. Those with no insurance at all wait over 3 hours, if they're seen at all. A board member with gray hair spoke up. Wait times vary based on medical necessity, not insurance status. That's what your policies state, Dr. Chen said, stepping forward. But that's not what happens in practice. She presented her own data showing how patients with identical symptoms received dramatically different response times based solely on their insurance status. This is highly selective data, Dr. Wilson objected. It doesn't reflect our overall patient care. Then perhaps you should listen to your patients directly, Sterling said. He nodded to Maya, who stood up. My name is Maya Johnson, she began, her voice surprisingly steady. My brother Tobias nearly died in your waiting room because we don't have insurance. But we weren't the only ones. Maya played her recordings one after another. The boardroom fell silent as they listened to Rebecca Mills turning away patient after patient, sometimes with the explicit approval of supervisors. These recordings violate hospital privacy policies, a board member objected weakly. They also document violations of federal law, Sarah Parker replied. The Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act requires hospitals to provide emergency care regardless of ability to pay. Each of these incidents represents a separate violation. Dr. Wilson's face had grown pale. These are isolated incidents that don't reflect hospital policy. Really? Sterling pulled up financial documents on the screen. Then why does your staff bonus structure include incentives for minimizing unprofitable patient stays? Why are emergency room doctors evaluated partly on their patient financial profile management? Board members looked at each other in confusion. Some appeared genuinely surprised by these revelations. I wasn't aware of these practices, one woman said quietly. Many of you may not have known the details, Sterling acknowledged. But the evidence shows a systemic problem that goes beyond a few individuals. He turned to Dr. Wilson. Which brings us to Emma Sterling, my daughter. The room grew even more tense as Sterling displayed Emma's medical records, both the originals and the altered versions. Emma arrived with clear symptoms of bacterial meningitis. She had a high fever, sensitivity to light, neck stiffness, and disorientation. The original intake notes documented all of this. Yet she was classified as a routine flu case and made to wait 4 hours for treatment. By then it was too late. Dr. Wilson stood up abruptly. This meeting is over. You're making serious accusations without proper context. Our legal team will need to review all of this before we respond. Hiding behind lawyers won't work this time, Sterling said. Because this isn't just about my daughter anymore. It's about Maya's brother Tobias. It's about the 7 children who died in your emergency room in the past 3 years after extended waits. It's about the dozens of patients who were illegally turned away when they needed care. You can't prove any of this is connected, Dr. Wilson insisted. Actually, we can. Maya stepped forward again. I remember every face, every interaction I've seen in this hospital. I remember which doctors tried to help anyway. I remember which nurses looked sorry when they had to follow bad rules. And I remember which administrators told them to do it. She pointed directly at Dr. Wilson. You were there the day Mr. Sterling's daughter was waiting. You walked past her twice. You saw how sick she was. You did nothing. Wilson's face flushed with anger. This is absurd. You can't possibly remember something from 2 years ago. You're just a child repeating what Sterling told you to say. Test me, Maya challenged. Ask me about any day I was in this hospital. I'll tell you who was working, what they were wearing, which patients were turned away. A board member looked intrigued. January 15th of last year. Who was at the reception desk? Without hesitation, Maya answered, Rebecca Mills and Thomas Harper. Rebecca was wearing a blue blouse with a coffee stain on the right sleeve. Thomas was training that day. He tried to help a man with chest pain, but Rebecca told him to verify insurance first. The board member looked shocked. That's correct. I was there that day. Dr. Wilson tried another tactic. Even if some of these claims have merit, going public will only damage the hospital's ability to serve the community. Thousands of patients depend on us. We don't want to destroy the hospital, Sterling said. We want to reform it, which is why I've prepared this. He distributed documents to each board member. This is a comprehensive reform plan for Mercy General. New leadership, new policies, new oversight mechanisms. I'm prepared to fund these changes personally with a donation of $50 million, 5 times what I originally discussed. The board members looked through the documents with growing interest. And if we refuse? Dr. Wilson asked. Then at 6 o'clock this evening, everything we've presented today goes to the Department of Health and Human Services, the media, and the FBI. The recordings, the altered medical records, the financial incentives for patient discrimination, all of it. The oldest board member, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. May I suggest the board take a brief recess to discuss these matters privately? As the board filed out, Dr. Wilson approached Sterling, his voice low and threatening. This isn't over, Sterling. You have no idea what we can still do to you and that girl. Maya, who stood nearby, heard every word. Heard you. Her eyes met Wilson's without flinching. We're not afraid of you anymore, she said simply. The boardroom door reopened after 20 minutes. Board members filed back in with grave expressions. The elderly chairman took his seat at the head of the table, folding his hands in front of him. Mr. Sterling, he said, the board has some questions before we respond to your proposal. Sterling nodded. Of course. First, how do we know these recordings haven't been edited or taken out of context? Maya stepped forward. I can tell you exactly when each recording was made, who was present, and what happened before and after. I remember everything, Dr. Chen added. And I've personally witnessed similar incidents during my time here. A female board member spoke next. Even if these practices occurred, there's no evidence that hospital leadership directed them. Sterling clicked to a new slide on his presentation. These are emails between Dr. Wilson and department heads discussing what they call financial screening protocols in the emergency department. Dr. Wilson's face reddened. Those emails describe perfectly legal procedures for billing and insurance verification. After treatment begins, Sterling countered. Not before, as your staff has been instructed. The board chairman looked troubled. Dr. Wilson, did you authorize these procedures? Before Wilson could answer, the boardroom door opened. Rebecca Mills entered looking nervous. A board member had requested her presence to respond to the recordings. Ms. Mills, the chairman said, we've heard recordings of you apparently turning away patients without insurance. Do you have any explanation? Rebecca glanced at Dr. Wilson, who gave her a barely perceptible nod. Those recordings are taken out of context, she began. I follow hospital protocols for patient intake. Which protocols? Sterling interrupted, displaying a slide with the hospital's official written policy. This clearly states that emergency medical screening must occur before any discussion of payment or insurance. Rebecca looked increasingly uncomfortable. Well, yes, that's the official policy, but in practice. In practice, what? The chairman pressed. Rebecca hesitated, then straightened her shoulders. In practice, we were told to prioritize patients who could pay, not to turn away emergency cases outright. That would be illegal, but to discourage those without insurance through delays and paperwork. A murmur ran through the room. Dr. Wilson started to speak, but Rebecca continued, it was never in writing. It was explained in staff meetings as resource management and patient flow optimization, but everyone understood what it meant. Who gave these instructions? The chairman asked. Rebecca looked directly at Dr. Wilson. Administration. Dr. Wilson made it clear that our performance evaluations would reflect how well we managed the patient financial profile. Dr. Wilson stood up angrily. This is absurd. Ms. Mills is clearly trying to deflect blame for her own actions. Is she? Sterling clicked to another slide showing hospital staff bonus structures with metrics for unprofitable patient reduction and insurance verification compliance. The chairman removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. Dr. Wilson, did you implement these metrics? The board approved that bonus structure last year, Wilson deflected. It was presented in the financial committee meeting. An older board member spoke up. It was presented as a way to improve efficiency in billing procedures, not as a means to screen patients before treatment. The room fell silent as board members began to realize the full extent of what had been happening. Sterling let them process for a moment before continuing. Now let's discuss what happened with my daughter Emma. He displayed the original and altered medical records side by side. The original records show Emma arrived with clear symptoms of bacterial meningitis. The altered records created 3 days after her death downgraded those symptoms to match a common flu diagnosis. Dr. Wilson stood up. This has gone far enough. I move that we adjourn this meeting and consult with legal counsel before continuing. The chairman shook his head. No, James. We need to understand what happened. Who authorized these changes to Emma's records? A board member asked. Dr. Chen stepped forward. The system logs show the changes were made using Dr. Wilson's administrative credentials. All eyes turned to Wilson, whose composure finally cracked. This is a witch hunt. Sterling lost his daughter and needs someone to blame. He's using his money and influence to attack this hospital. We're not attacking the hospital, Sterling said calmly. We're exposing practices that hurt patients and violate the law. The law is open to interpretation, Wilson snapped. Maya, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke. No, it's not. The law says you have to help people who are sick, no matter who they are or if they can pay. That's not complicated. Her simple, direct statement hung in the air. Several board members nodded in agreement. Wilson tried one more tactic. Even if mistakes were made, going public with these accusations will destroy this hospital. Is that what you want, Sterling? To close one of the only hospitals serving this community? No, Sterling replied. What I want is for Mercy General to actually fulfill its mission statement. He pointed to the framed words on the boardroom wall. Providing compassionate care to all in need. The hospital's legal counsel, who had been taking notes throughout the meeting, finally spoke. I advise the board that we should end this discussion immediately. Mr. Sterling, your allegations require proper investigation through appropriate channels. Sterling smiled slightly. I expected this response, which is why I took precautions. He pressed a button on his phone. Are you getting all this, Marcus? A voice came through the speaker. Crystal clear, sir. The live stream is reaching all recipients. The lawyer jumped to his feet. What live stream? This is illegal. You can't record this meeting without consent. Actually, Illinois is a one-party consent state, Sarah Parker explained. And Dr. Chen consented to the recording as a participant in the meeting. The chairman looked shocked. Who is receiving this live stream? The Department of Health and Human Services, the Illinois Medical Board, the Chicago Tribune, and a special prosecutor who focuses on healthcare fraud. Sterling put his phone down. You can't bury this anymore. The room erupted in chaos. Board members began arguing among themselves. The lawyer frantically whispered to Dr. Wilson. Rebecca Mills slipped out of the room unnoticed. The chairman banged his gavel repeatedly until order was restored. Enough. It's clear we face a serious situation that requires immediate action. He turned to Sterling. What exactly do you want? Sterling slid a document across the table. This details the reforms Mercy General needs to implement. Complete leadership change starting with Dr. Wilson's resignation. New emergency room protocols with independent oversight, a fund for uninsured patients, and a formal acknowledgement of what happened to Emma and other patients who received substandard care due to financial screening. The board members passed the document around, reading it carefully. And if we agree to these terms, the chairman asked, then I'll provide $50 million to fund these changes, and I'll work with you to implement them properly, not against you. Dr. Wilson laughed bitterly. So, that's what this is really about. You're using your daughter's death to take control of this hospital. Maya stood up straight, facing Dr. Wilson directly. Mr. Sterling could have shut this hospital down if he wanted to. He has the evidence to do it. Instead, He's trying to fix it so other kids don't die like Emma did, like Tobias almost did. The simplicity and truth of her statement silenced the room. The chairman sighed deeply. I believe we need to seriously consider Mr. Sterling's proposal. The alternative seems to be public scandal, legal action, and possible criminal charges. Over the next hour, the board negotiated specific points in Sterling's proposal. Dr. Wilson sat silently, his career visibly crumbling before him. By the end of the meeting, the board had agreed to most of Sterling's demands, including Wilson's removal and a complete restructuring of emergency room protocols. As the meeting concluded, board members filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact with Wilson. The chairman stayed behind to speak with Sterling. I want you to know, he said quietly, that many of us had no idea about these practices. We failed in our oversight responsibilities, and for that, I'm truly sorry about your daughter. Sterling nodded, accepting the apology. What matters now is making sure it doesn't happen again. As they left the boardroom, Dr. Chen received an urgent text message. The nurses are saying Dr. Wilson just went to the records department. He's demanding access to all the files we mentioned. Sterling immediately called his security team. Lock down all the evidence, and notify our contacts at the regulatory agencies that Wilson may be destroying records. Outside in the hallway, they found Rebecca Mills waiting for them. Her usual confidence was gone. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. Emma wasn't the only one. There were others. Children who waited too long because they were marked as low priority based on insurance. Maya stepped forward. We know. I remember their faces. All of them. Rebecca looked at the young girl with surprise. I told myself I was just following orders, that I wasn't responsible for what happened to them. Her voice broke. I was wrong. Sterling studied the woman who had turned away his daughter. 2 years of hate suddenly felt hollow. You can still help make this right. Tell the truth about what happened. All of it. Before Rebecca could respond, shouts erupted from the end of the hallway. Dr. Wilson was being escorted from the records department by security guards. When he saw Sterling, he broke free and rushed toward him. You've destroyed everything I built here, he shouted. This isn't over, Sterling. Your precious reforms won't last a month once I reveal what you're really after. Security quickly restrained him, but his words hung in the air. What did he mean by that? Maya asked as Wilson was led away. Sterling shook his head. He's desperate. People say all kinds of things when they're desperate. But Dr. Chen looked troubled. We should be careful. Dr. Wilson has powerful connections throughout Chicago's medical community. He won't go down without a fight. As they walked toward the elevator, hospital staff watched them pass. Some looked afraid, others relieved. A young nurse stepped forward and whispered, "Thank you," to Maya as they passed. Sterling's phone rang, his head of security. Sir, we've secured all the evidence, but there's something else you should know. Someone just leaked Emma's medical photographs to the Chicago Tribune. They're claiming the images prove her condition wasn't serious when she arrived. Sterling stopped walking, his face pale. That's impossible. Those photos were sealed by court order. The Tribune received them anonymously along with a statement suggesting you doctored the medical records as part of a vendetta against the hospital. Maya looked up at Sterling. They're still trying to protect themselves even now. Sterling nodded grimly. Yes, but they've made a serious mistake. Those photos actually show how sick Emma really was. They prove our case, not theirs. Dr. Chen touched his arm gently. This isn't over yet, is it? No, Sterling replied. The board may have agreed to our demands, but the people who created this system won't surrender their power so easily. We've won the battle, but the war continues. The following morning, Emma's photos were everywhere. News outlets blurred the most disturbing images, but showed enough for the public to see how seriously ill she had been. Medical experts on morning shows unanimously agreed. The child in those photos needed immediate treatment. This backfired spectacularly, Sarah Parker told Sterling as they watched the coverage in his penthouse. Whoever leaked these photos thought they would discredit you. Instead, they've proven your case. Sterling nodded, his expression pained. He hated seeing Emma's suffering displayed publicly, but recognized the impact it was having. Have we identified the source of the leak? Not conclusively, but the digital signature suggests the files came from Dr. Wilson's personal computer. Maya entered from the guest bedroom where she had been helping Tobias with breakfast. Everyone at school is talking about the hospital. My friend Jamal just texted me. His mom works in billing at Mercy General. She says lots of people are coming forward about being turned away from the emergency room. Sterling's phone rang. The hospital board chairman. Mr. Sterling, given recent developments, the board has called an emergency session this afternoon at 2 o'clock. We would like you to attend. I'll be there, Sterling replied, along with Maya Johnson and Dr. Chin. After ending the call, Sterling explained to Maya, the board wants to meet again today. They're feeling the pressure from the public response to Emma's photos. Are they going to accept your reforms? Maya asked. We'll see. But this time, we need to be even more prepared. Sterling's legal and technical team spent the morning organizing their evidence for maximum impact. Sarah arranged all documentation chronologically, creating clear connections between individual incidents and systemic practices. At 1:30, Sterling, Maya, and Dr. Chin arrived at Mercy General Hospital. The scene outside was chaotic. Reporters crowded the entrance while protesters carried signs reading "Care before coverage" and "Justice for Emma." Inside, the hospital seemed unnaturally quiet. Staff moved efficiently but avoided eye contact with visitors. Security guards stood at strategic locations throughout the building. As they approached the boardroom, Sterling reviewed the plan with Maya and Dr. Chin. Let me lead. Only speak when I signal you. And remember, we're not here for revenge. We're here for reform. The boardroom was full when they entered. All 15 board members were present along with the hospital's legal counsel and several executives. Dr. Wilson was noticeably absent. The chairman opened the meeting with uncharacteristic humility. Mr. Sterling, recent events have made clear that Mercy General faces serious issues requiring immediate attention. We've reviewed your reform proposal and are prepared to implement most of your recommendations. Sterling remained expressionless. Most isn't good enough. There are practical considerations. There are children's lives at stake, Sterling interrupted. Let me be clear about what happens today. Either Mercy General commits to complete reform, or by this evening it will face federal investigation, class action lawsuits, and the withdrawal of all major insurance contracts. The room fell silent. The chairman cleared his throat. Those are serious threats, Mr. Sterling. They're not threats. They're consequences that are already in motion unless we reach a comprehensive agreement today. Sterling connected his laptop to the room's display system. I want to make sure everyone understands exactly what we're dealing with. The screen showed a timeline of patient care incidents at Mercy General over the past 3 years. Each documented with records, witness statements, or Maya's recordings. 73 patients were illegally denied emergency care. 9 died as a direct result, including 7 children. Sterling's voice remained steady despite the horrifying statistics. This wasn't a few isolated incidents. It was systematic policy. We never authorized any policy to deny care, a board member protested. Sterling clicked to the next slide, showing the hospital's financial incentive structure. You approved this bonus system that rewarded staff for minimizing unprofitable patient stays. You may not have stated explicitly, turn away poor patients, but you created every incentive to do exactly that. The hospital's lawyer tried to intervene. These documents lack context. The incentive structure was designed to improve efficiency. Efficiency? Dr. Chin spoke up. I watched a child struggle to breathe for 4 hours in your waiting room while patients with less urgent conditions were treated because they had better insurance. Is that your definition of efficiency? Maya stepped forward. I can tell you the names of every person Rebecca Mills turned away while I was in the waiting room. I can describe what they were wearing, what was wrong with them, and what happened after they left. Some of them never came back. Some of them died. The simplicity and directness of her statement silenced the room. The chairman looked deeply troubled. If what you're saying is true. It is true, a new voice said from the doorway. Rebecca Mills entered looking nervous but determined. Everything they're saying is true, and there's more. She placed a USB drive on the table. These are emails from Dr. Wilson instructing supervisors on how to implement what he called financial screening protocols without explicitly violating the law. The board members looked stunned by this betrayal from within. Why are you doing this, Miss Mills? The chairman asked. Rebecca looked at Maya. Because this girl made me remember what it means to have a conscience. She turned to Sterling. And because I was there when Emma came in. I remember her. I remember all of them. The hospital lawyer tried to regain control of the situation. Miss Mills may be speaking out of personal grievances or fear of liability. We need to verify all of these claims through proper channels. The proper channels have failed, Sterling cut in. That's why we're here. He displayed the next slide. Emma's complete medical file, including the original records showing she had arrived with clear symptoms of meningitis. My daughter didn't die from the flu. She died because your hospital prioritized money over care. She died because your system is designed to serve those who can pay and discourage those who can't. Sterling clicked to the next slide, showing Tobias's intake form with no insurance highlighted and low priority stamped across it. This boy would have died too if I hadn't intervened. How many others weren't so lucky? The chairman sighed heavily. What exactly do you want from us, Mr. Sterling? Sterling distributed copies of his revised proposal to every person in the room. Complete leadership change. Dr. Wilson resigns with no severance. The board establishes an independent patient advocacy office with real authority. Emergency room protocols are reformed to eliminate any screening based on financial status, and a $50 million fund is created to provide care for uninsured patients. The lawyer scanned the document. These terms are extremely demanding. They're non-negotiable, Sterling replied. And there's one more condition. I want to join the board as chairman. This caused an immediate uproar. Board members objected loudly until the chairman called for order. You want to take control of Mercy General? He asked Sterling. I want to ensure these reforms actually happen and aren't quietly reversed once public attention moves on. The current chairman looked around the table. This requires careful consideration. I suggest we take a short recess to discuss Mr. Sterling's demands privately. Before you do, Sterling said, there's something else you should know. He nodded to Dr. Chen, who pressed a button on her phone. A voice came through the speaker. Dr. Chen, this is Captain Reynolds from the FBI Healthcare Fraud Unit. Based on the evidence you've provided, we're preparing to execute search warrants at Mercy General Hospital tomorrow morning. Please confirm you received this message. The room froze in shock. The hospital lawyer stood up angrily. You're working with federal agents. This entire meeting has been in bad faith. No, Sterling replied calmly. Bad faith was altering my daughter's medical records to hide negligence. Bad faith was training staff to turn away sick children who couldn't pay. What we're doing is seeking justice through every available channel. He looked around the table at each board member. You have a simple choice. Work with us to reform this hospital voluntarily or face federal prosecution and civil lawsuits that will destroy it completely. The recess that followed was tense. Sterling, Maya, and Dr. Chen waited in a small conference room while the board deliberated. Maya looked exhausted but determined. Do you think they'll agree? She asked Sterling. They don't have much choice, he replied. The evidence is overwhelming. Dr. Chen checked her phone. The medical board is already investigating 3 doctors based on our evidence, and patient advocacy groups are organizing protests at every hospital in the city. After 45 minutes, they were called back to the boardroom. The atmosphere had changed noticeably. Several board members looked defeated, while others seemed almost relieved. Mr. Sterling, the chairman began, after careful consideration, the board has voted to accept all of your conditions, including your appointment as chairman. He slid a signed document across the table. We recognize the seriousness of what has occurred and the need for fundamental change. Sterling reviewed the document carefully before signing. This is the right decision for the hospital and for the community it serves. The chairman stood up. I hereby tender my resignation effective immediately. One by one, other board members who had been complicit in the hospital's practices did the same. As the meeting concluded, Rebecca Mills approached Sterling. There's something else you should know. Dr. Wilson didn't just leak Emma's photos. He's the one who altered her records after she died. I saw him do it. Sterling's expression hardened. Do you have proof? Yes. I kept my own copies of the original files. I was afraid someday he would try to blame me for what happened to her. When they left the boardroom, reporters were waiting outside the hospital. The story had grown too big to contain. Sterling stepped up to the microphones flanked by Maya and Dr. Chin. Today marks a new beginning for Mercy General Hospital. He announced the board has unanimously approved comprehensive reforms to ensure that every patient receives appropriate care regardless of their ability to pay. A reporter called out, "Is it true that Dr. James Wilson has been forced to resign?" Dr. Wilson is no longer affiliated with this hospital, Sterling confirmed. His actions and the systems he implemented violated both the law and the fundamental ethics of medical care. Another reporter asked, "Will there be criminal charges?" "That will be determined by the appropriate authorities. Our focus now is on healing this institution and restoring trust with the community it serves." As Sterling continued answering questions, Maya noticed Dr. Wilson watching from his car across the street. Their eyes met briefly before he drove away. Later that evening, Sterling, Maya, and Letitia sat with Tobias in Sterling's penthouse. The boy was fully recovered now, laughing as he played a video game Sterling had bought him. "I still can't believe it," Letitia said quietly. "You actually took over the hospital." "Not just me," Sterling replied. "The new board includes community representatives, medical ethics experts, and patient advocates." He smiled at Maya. "Including you if you're willing." Maya looked surprised. "Me? But I'm only 14. As a special youth advisor, your perspective is exactly what the hospital needs." Letitia squeezed her daughter's hand. "I'm so proud of you, both of you." She looked at Tobias, then back at Sterling. "You saved my son, and now you're going to help other families too." Sterling thought about Emma, whose photo sat on the nearby shelf. This is what Emma would have wanted. Not revenge, but change. Real change that helps people. Maya was thoughtful. "Do you think it will really work? Will the hospital actually be different?" "It already is," Sterling assured her. "But we have to stay vigilant. People like Dr. Wilson don't give up easily." As if summoned by his name, Sterling's phone rang. It was his security chief. "Sir, we've been monitoring Dr. Wilson as you requested. He just met with 3 other hospital administrators from across Chicago. They're planning something, and I don't think you're going to like it." "What are they planning?" Sterling asked, stepping away from Maya and Letitia. Dr. Wilson met with administrators from Chicago Memorial, Lakeshore Hospital, and University Medical Center, his security chief explained. "They're coordinating what they're calling a response to dangerous interference in healthcare management." Sterling ended the call and returned to the living room, his expression controlled. "Is everything okay?" Maya asked. "Dr. Wilson is rallying other hospitals against our reforms," Sterling explained. "He's trying to protect the system that benefited them all." "Can he do that after everything that happened?" Letitia asked. "He still has influence, and other hospitals might fear similar scrutiny of their own practices." Sterling checked his watch. "I need to head to Mercy General early tomorrow. The transition begins at 8 o'clock. The next morning, Sterling arrived at the hospital to find television crews already set up outside. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Staff clustered in small groups, whispering as he passed. Some looked hopeful, others fearful or resentful. In the main conference room, the remaining board members waited alongside newly appointed community representatives. Sterling took his place at the head of the table. "Today marks a new beginning for Mercy General," he began. "Our first priority is implementing the emergency room reforms. All financial screening before treatment ends immediately." An older doctor raised his hand. With respect, Mr. Sterling, how will we manage resources if we can't prioritize patients? We prioritize based on medical need only, Sterling replied firmly. That's what the law requires, but the financial reality will be addressed through the $50 million fund I'm establishing. Sterling looked around the table. Any other concerns? A nurse manager spoke up. Staff are worried about their jobs. There are rumors of mass firings. We're not firing staff indiscriminately, Sterling assured her. We're examining who participated in illegal practices and who was just following orders. Those who acted ethically will be valued even more under the new administration. By noon, the first changes were visible. Signs appeared in the emergency waiting room. All patients will be seen based on medical need only. Dr. Chen, now appointed emergency department director, personally supervised triage procedures. Sterling was meeting with the hospital's financial team when Maya arrived after school. How's it going? She asked, dropping her backpack on a chair. Change doesn't come easy, Sterling admitted. Some staff are resistant, others are afraid. A few have already resigned in protest. My teacher said you're trying to force socialist medicine on Chicago, Maya reported. She didn't know I'm connected to all this. Sterling smiled slightly. That's what we're up against. People defending a broken system because they fear change. The door opened and Dr. Chen entered looking troubled. We have a problem. Several emergency cases that should have come to us were diverted to Chicago Memorial today. They're claiming they're overcrowded. They're working with Wilson, Sterling concluded, trying to overwhelm other hospitals to make our reforms look unworkable. Dr. Chen nodded. And 3 insurance companies have contacted us, questioning our new policies. They're threatening to reduce reimbursement rates. Wilson is pulling every lever he can, Sterling said. We need to respond. That evening, Sterling called an emergency meeting with his leadership team. We're facing coordinated resistance, he explained. Wilson is using his connections to undermine our reforms. The mayor's office called today. The new hospital administrator reported they've expressed concern about destabilizing changes to healthcare delivery in Chicago. And the medical licensing board has requested Dr. Chen's complete employment records, Sarah Parker added. They're obviously looking for something to use against her. Sterling's expression hardened. Then we fight back harder. I'll double the reform fund to $100 million. We'll hire additional staff to handle increased patient volume. And we'll launch our own media campaign explaining the reforms. Maya, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Money won't solve everything. People are scared of change. They need to understand why it matters. What do you suggest? Sterling asked. Let people tell their stories. Patients who were turned away. Families who lost loved ones because they couldn't pay. Nurses who wanted to help but weren't allowed to. Maya looked around the table. People understand stories better than policies. The next day, Sterling implemented Maya's suggestion. The hospital lobby was transformed into a space where patients could record video testimonials about their experiences. The stories were powerful. A grandmother who had been forced to choose between medicine and food. A father who had been turned away 3 times despite chest pain. A child whose broken arm had been left untreated for days because of insurance verification delays. Meanwhile, Dr. Chen discovered that certain nurses were still secretly prioritizing patients with better insurance, following Dr. Wilson's protocols out of habit or fear. She organized retraining sessions emphasizing both the legal and ethical requirements for proper triage. This isn't just about following new rules, she explained to the emergency department staff. It's about remembering why you became healthcare providers in the first place. Some nurses looked ashamed. Others seemed relieved that they could finally treat patients properly without fear of punishment. By the end of the first week, the resistance intensified. Sterling received notice that his technology company was being investigated for potential securities violations. The investigation was clearly politically motivated, targeting Sterling's business interests to pressure him to abandon the hospital reforms. They're coming after my company now, Sterling told Maya when she visited after school. Using regulatory agencies to threaten me. Is it working? She asked. No, it just proves we're making them nervous. Sterling's phone rang. Letitia Johnson. Mr. Sterling, her voice was tense. Maya's science program at school just lost its funding, and my new job offer disappeared. They said the position was eliminated, but I know it's because of our connection to you. They're targeting your family, too, Sterling said after hanging up. These people will stop at nothing. I'm not surprised, Maya said calmly. They're scared because we're changing things. Sterling studied the young girl's face. Despite everything she'd been through, her determination remained unshaken. How do you stay so strong? I remember why we're doing this, she said simply. For Tobias, for Emma, for everyone who needs care and can't get it because of money. The next morning, Sterling found protesters outside the hospital, a small but vocal group carrying signs that read, "Save our hospital from billionaire control," and "Sterling putting politics over patients." Local news cameras filmed as protesters claimed the reforms were causing chaos and endangering care. Inside, Sterling called an emergency staff meeting. I know change is difficult, he told the assembled doctors, nurses, and administrators, and I know there are people trying to sabotage what we're doing, but I need you to remember why this matters. He introduced Maya, who spoke directly to the staff. 2 weeks ago, my brother Tobias almost died in your waiting room. Not because you couldn't help him, but because rules and money got in the way of helping him. She looked around the room. I know most of you became doctors and nurses to help people. That's all we're trying to do. Make it possible for you to help everyone who needs it. Her simple words resonated with many staff members. A veteran nurse stood up. I've worked here 27 years. I've seen patients turned away because they couldn't pay. I've watched children suffer while paperwork was processed. I'm glad someone finally had the courage to change things. Others shared similar feelings. Not everyone was supportive, but enough voices spoke up to create momentum. Later that week, Sterling organized community forums to explain the hospital's new approach. The first was held in a church in Maya's neighborhood. The room was packed with residents who had experienced Mercy General's previous policies firsthand. We're not just changing policies, Sterling explained to the crowd. We're changing the entire culture of how this hospital operates. Every patient matters regardless of their insurance or financial status. Dr. Chen shared data showing improved outcomes under the new system. We're actually providing better care across the board because we're focusing on medical needs first. A man stood up from the audience. My wife died in your waiting room last year. She had chest pains, but they kept asking for insurance cards instead of helping her. Why should we believe anything will be different now? Before Sterling could answer, Maya walked to the microphone. Because people like me and Mr. Sterling will be watching. Because doctors like Dr. Chen will be in charge, and because we won't stop until the system actually works for everyone. The simplicity and sincerity of her answer moved many in the audience. The community forums continued throughout the city, gradually building support for the reforms. 3 weeks into the transition, Sterling received the first signs that the tide was turning. Medical students from across Chicago requested rotations at Mercy General, attracted by the hospital's new ethical approach. Patient satisfaction scores began rising, and most importantly, medical outcomes improved as people sought treatment earlier without fear of financial barriers. We're starting to see results, Sterling told his leadership team. But the opposition isn't giving up. Dr. Chen reported that Chicago Memorial and Lakeshore Hospital were still diverting patients to Mercy General in an attempt to overwhelm their resources. They sent 17 ambulances our way yesterday when they could have handled those cases. And 3 more nurses resigned this morning, the nursing director added. They received job offers from University Medical Center with significant signing bonuses. They're trying to poach our staff, Sterling concluded, especially those who support the reforms. Later that day, Sterling confronted the remaining board members who had been quietly obstructing changes. You've been delaying fund disbursements, questioning every new hire, and undermining staff morale, he said directly. Either commit to these reforms or resign now. 2 board members immediately submitted their resignations. The others, seeing the reforms gaining momentum, finally pledged their support. 6 months into the transformation, Mercy General Hospital had become a different institution. The emergency room now treated all patients based solely on medical need. A patient advocacy office ensured complaints were addressed quickly. Medical outcomes had improved across all demographic groups. Sterling was reviewing the latest progress reports when his security chief entered his office with troubling news. "Sir, we've detected a coordinated media campaign about to launch against you. Dr. Wilson and his associates have compiled a dossier claiming you manipulated evidence, pressured witnesses, and are using the hospital for your own agenda." "More baseless accusations," Sterling said dismissively. "There's more. Someone has leaked Emma's medical photographs to additional media outlets, but this time with a document claiming you digitally altered them to make her condition look more severe than it was." Sterling's face paled. "They're attacking Emma now, using my daughter's memory against me." His security chief nodded grimly. "The story is set to break tomorrow morning." Sterling called an emergency meeting at his downtown office. Maya, Dr. Chin, and Sarah Parker gathered around his conference table as news alerts continued to appear on their phones. "They're really claiming I altered Emma's photos," Sterling said, his voice tight with anger. "They're using my daughter to attack everything we've accomplished." Sarah reviewed the breaking news stories. "They've coordinated this across multiple outlets. It's clearly orchestrated by Wilson." "What can we do?" Maya asked. "Fight back with the truth," Sterling decided. "Sarah, contact every medical expert who reviewed Emma's original case. Dr. Chin, prepare a point-by-point response to their claims, and I want a press conference scheduled for tomorrow morning." Throughout the night, Sterling's team worked tirelessly. By dawn, they had assembled a comprehensive rebuttal, including statements from 5 independent medical experts who had examined Emma's records. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Sterling stood before a room full of reporters at Mercy General Hospital. Maya and Dr. Chin stood beside him along with Rebecca Mills and 3 other former staff members who had come forward to support the reforms. "Yesterday, certain individuals launched a coordinated attack on my character and on the memory of my daughter, Emma," Sterling began. "They claimed I manipulated evidence to pursue a personal vendetta against this hospital." He paused, looking directly into the cameras. "Today, I'm going to let medical experts speak for themselves about what really happened to Emma." One by one, respected doctors from major medical institutions across the country appeared via video link, each confirming the same conclusion. Emma Sterling had arrived at Mercy General with clear signs of bacterial meningitis that went untreated for hours despite the family's excellent insurance coverage. Dr. Margaret Williams, a renowned pediatric specialist from Johns Hopkins, was particularly direct. "The photos show classic meningitis symptoms that any first-year medical student should recognize. This wasn't a difficult diagnosis. It was a catastrophic failure of care." Sterling then introduced Rebecca Mills, who stepped forward nervously. "I was working the reception desk the day Emma Sterling came in," she admitted. "I followed hospital protocols that prioritized certain patients over others. Those protocols cost Emma her life." Her voice broke. "And after she died, I watched Dr. Wilson personally alter her records to hide what really happened." The room erupted with questions. Sterling raised his hand for quiet. "We have evidence that Dr. Wilson not only altered Emma's records, but has been coordinating with other hospital administrators to undermine patient care reforms across Chicago." Sarah Parker distributed a folder to each reporter. "These documents show communications between Dr. Wilson and administrators at 3 other hospitals planning to divert patients, poach staff, and manufacture negative publicity about Mercy General's reforms." A reporter stood up. "Mr. Sterling, are you saying there's a conspiracy among hospital administrators?" "I'm saying that a system that prioritizes profit over patients will defend itself aggressively when challenged," Sterling replied. "And the people who benefited from that system are fighting to preserve it." Another reporter asked, "What actions are you taking against Dr. Wilson?" "We've filed formal complaints with the medical board and law enforcement regarding the falsification of medical records. Beyond that, the appropriate authorities will determine next steps." The press conference transformed the narrative. By evening, public support for Mercy General's reforms had surged. Medical experts across the country praised the hospital's new approach, with several calling for similar changes nationwide. 3 days later, Dr. Wilson was arrested for tampering with medical records and violating patient privacy laws by leaking Emma's photos. The investigation quickly expanded to include insurance fraud and conspiracy charges. 1 month after the failed media attack, Sterling called Maya to his office. "I want to show you something," he said, unrolling architectural plans across his desk. Maya studied the drawings. "Is this a new building?" "A complete renovation of Mercy General," Sterling explained. "And a new name." He pointed to the front entrance design. "Emma and Tobias Medical Center." Maya's eyes widened. "You're naming it after Tobias, too." "Your brother's experience is just as important as Emma's in this story," Sterling said. "Both children represent why this work matters." "It's perfect," Maya whispered, running her fingers over the plans. "But will people remember why it's named this way? What happened could fade from memory over time." Sterling smiled. "That's why we're establishing something else, too." He handed her another document. "The Emma Sterling Foundation. It will provide funds for uninsured patients and medical scholarships for students from underprivileged backgrounds." Maya read through the scholarship criteria. "This says the first recipient will be selected in 4 years. When you're old enough to attend medical school," Sterling confirmed. "If you still want to be a doctor." "More than ever," Maya said firmly. Later that week, the hospital board unanimously approved the name change. The renovation would take 2 years to complete, but immediate changes continued throughout the facility. A transparent triage system was implemented with community oversight. Patient advocates were stationed throughout the emergency department. Every staff member received comprehensive training on the legal and ethical requirements for patient care. Rebecca Mills pleaded guilty to multiple counts of negligence and agreed to testify against Dr. Wilson and other administrators involved in the illegal practices. Her cooperation earned her a reduced sentence of community service and probation rather than prison time. At the formal dedication ceremony for Emma and Tobias Medical Center 1 year later, hundreds of community members gathered outside the hospital. Sterling had insisted that Maya and her family play a central role in the event. "This hospital once represented a broken system," Sterling told the crowd. "Today, it represents a promise that every patient deserves care, that every life holds equal value." Letitia, now employed as the hospital's community liaison officer, spoke about her family's experience. "My son Tobias almost died in this building because we couldn't afford insurance. Today, he's healthy and happy, and no other parent will face what I faced that day." Maya's speech was brief but powerful. "I was just a 14-year-old girl trying to help my brother. Now I'm part of something that will help thousands of people." That's what happens when people with power listen to people without it. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of a new mission statement prominently displayed in the entrance. "Every patient deserves care. Every life holds equal value." 10 years later, a much larger crowd gathered to celebrate another milestone. Dr. Maya Johnson, now 24 years old, stood on stage in her graduation cap and gown, accepting her medical degree with highest honors. In the front row, Richard Sterling sat beside Letitia, both of them openly wiping away tears. Next to them, a healthy 14-year-old Tobias cheered for his sister. Dr. Maya Johnson, the dean announced, recipient of the Emma Sterling Foundation Scholarship and this year's Award for Excellence in Emergency Medicine. After the ceremony, Sterling hugged Maya tightly. "Emma would have been so proud of you," he said. "I know I am." Maya smiled through her tears. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could," Sterling replied. "You would have found a way. That's who you are." As they walked to the celebration dinner, Maya shared her news. "I received a job offer yesterday, chief resident in emergency medicine at Emma and Tobias Medical Center." Sterling nodded approvingly. They couldn't make a better choice. "It feels right," Maya said, going back to where everything started. The Emma and Tobias Medical Center had become a national model for equitable healthcare delivery. Hospitals across the country had adopted what was now called the Sterling Standard for emergency care. The foundation had provided scholarships to 37 medical students from disadvantaged backgrounds and funded care for thousands of uninsured patients. On her first day as chief resident, Dr. Maya Johnson walked through the emergency department doors where she had once carried Tobias. The space was transformed, bright, welcoming, and efficiently organized to prioritize patient care. Maya stopped at the portrait of Emma that hung in the lobby. Next to it was a photograph of Tobias from that day 10 years ago with a simple caption: "Their stories changed healthcare." A commotion at the entrance caught her attention. A mother rushed in carrying a small child with labored breathing. "Please," the woman cried. "My daughter has a high fever. We don't have insurance." Dr. Maya Johnson stepped forward immediately. "Your child will receive the best care we have to offer," she said with quiet authority. "No questions, no payment required, no exceptions." As nurses quickly took the child for treatment, Maya glanced back at Emma's portrait. What had begun as a desperate plea for help had transformed into a movement for healthcare justice. The unlikely alliance between a determined teenager and a grieving billionaire had created lasting change neither could have achieved alone. Maya Johnson checked the little girl's breathing and fever, providing immediate treatment just as Dr. Chin had done for Tobias years ago. The circle was complete. The system was healing. And the legacy of two children, one who died because the system failed and one who lived because that system was changed, would continue to save countless lives. Later that evening, Maya called Sterling from her new office, the same office that had once belonged to Dr. Wilson. "We had 16 emergency cases today," she reported. "Every patient received immediate care based on medical need only." "How does it feel?" Sterling asked. "Being on the other side of those emergency room doors." Maya looked out at the department where doctors and nurses move efficiently among patients of all backgrounds. "It feels like we got it right," she said simply. "It feels like justice." If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.